meeting to order. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the city in which we live. Guide us this evening as we make our decisions. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
This is the January 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Newnan City Council. You have the minutes from the regular meeting of January the 11th, 2022 before you. I'll entertain a motion we adopt those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. We adopt the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. You also have the minutes from the work session of the sanitation waste program on January the 11th, 2022 before you. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. We adopt as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is several appointments to boards and commissions. The next one, I understand we need to put this on our next agenda. The first one is Keep Newnan Beautiful on our next agenda, please. The next one is Parks Commission. Councilman DeBoe.
Yes, I nominate Carol Tamplin.
Second.
Motion is second. We renominate Carol Tamplin for position on Parks Commission. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next, Ms. Jenkins.
I'd like to reappoint Christy Franklin.
Second.
Motion is second. We reappoint Christy Franklin to the Parks Commission. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next is Mr. Alexander's. If we'll put this on the next.
Yes,
next
sir.
meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next, Mr. DeBose.
Yes, I renominate Joe Crane Jr. to the Planning
Second.
Commission.
All right.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next, Mr. Keown.
Yes, I'd like to renominate Chris Hunt.
Second.
Motion is second. We renominate Chris Hunt for the Planning Commission for a 3-year term. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next, Ms. Jenkins, Tree Commission, is that on our next agenda?
Next agenda.
Okay, thank you. And I have spoken to Mr. Bobby Lee, and he would like to be reappointed to the Water and Light Commission. I'll place his name in nomination.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Phillips, do you have anything this evening?
I'd like to have Mr. Craver to do a quick introduction for us.
All right.
Mayor Brady, members of the council, while she doesn't know this is coming, I'd like to recognize a new staff member. We've hired a communications manager. She's in the back. Her name's Amy Haddon. If you would join me in welcoming Amy to the team.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, we moved over introducing the Newnan Youth Council. Ms. Jenkins.
Tonight we have several members of the Newnan Youth Council present with us. They're all 10th graders, so this is their first year. When I call your name, please stand. Maddie Butler, 10th grader, Newnan High. Sarah Hayes Grody, 10th grader, Newnan High. Keaton McNutt, 10th grade, East Coweta. Macy Horn, Newnan High. Sunny Durham, Heritage.
Welcome. Glad
Thank
you're
you.
here. Hope you're having a good year. I don't have anything this evening. Under new business, the first item is a consideration of agreement between Low Engineers LLC and the City of Newnan for professional engineering services for the design, plan development, preparation of related bid documents for improving the vehicular operations and accommodating pedestrian activities at Jackson Street, Jefferson Street, and Clark Street. Mr. Clark, how are you this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a continuation. We've gone through the concept development with the Georgia Department of Transportation. We used grant funds for that portion of the project. Now we're going whole local, and we'd like to recommend that we stay with the same engineering firm that we had selected by qualification base.
All right. Any questions of Mr. Clark?
I have a quick question for you. In all the diagrams, I know it says, it states sign size not to scale.
Yeah.
I surely hope that's not true because those signs are grossly too large.
Those are just examples of signs, what the signs may say. They will meet normal standards for vertical clearance and lettering size, and they will be sized appropriately.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to point out that some of those signs are all the way out in advance of the bypass with the idea that people that may or may not be aware that we have a bypass that would go that way, and that would route some of them that way as well. So the signs go all the way out almost to I-85.
Gotcha. And one other quick question for you was, I see there's some pavement markings as well.
Yes.
Especially down in the 34 Jefferson Jackson corridor area. Is there anywhere else, like on the 85 north, because there's like that solid stripe for the 85 south, are they going to back that up, or is there any more pavement markings?
That would not be in this project, no, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second, we grant or authorize the agreement between Lowe and the city of Newnan. Any discussion or other questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carried. Mr. Clark, you're up for the next two.
Yes, sir.
Consideration of indication of support of concept presented for Spraberry Road Sidewalk Improvement Project.
Yes, sir. We are working through sidewalk and streetscape projects on Jackson Street and Sprayberry Road, and we brought you the Jackson Street project earlier. This is a sister project. This also is 100% local funding, and we presented you with a concept that would carry the sidewalk from the Jackson Street intersection to the Casey Road and the dog park. And we're looking for approval just to move forward with the concept and go to design. The group would be Atkins and ISE.
Any questions of Mr. Clark?
Yes, I do. For just the design phase, what's the total cost on that?
That would come back to you. We would bring that back to you if you agree to go forward with the project. We'll give you a design cost.
Okay.
There is a construction cost estimate in there, but that came from the concept.
Okay. And then another quick question for you was, looking at some of the diagrams, trying to figure out what all the sidewalks, this will tie in to some of the existing sidewalks? Or how is the tie-in between new sidewalks and existing sidewalks?
There are no the only part of the sidewalk that's existing on Sprayberry Road was built with the dog park, and it starts on the other side of Casey Road and just kind of ends, thinking that perhaps one day the link would come there. So this is all new sidewalk.
Okay, so it's not going to tie into that at all then?
It'll tie into Casey Road,
But
which
that's it?
you'll cross Casey Road and you'll be able to get on the new sidewalk, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
All right, so what staff is looking for here is a consideration of our support for moving forward with this project. So I would like, if it's pleasure of this council, a motion to indicate that support.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The motion is our indication of support of the Spraberry Road Sidewalk Improvement Project. Any discussion? Other questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next is a consideration of a list of roadways for radar speed enforcement. Mr. Clark.
This is, I believe it's every 3 years that the police department has to submit to GDOT for approval to use detection devices on particular roads. I know there are considerations for whether the speed limit is appropriate and geometric issues, and GDOT has to bless them before they can use the radar, and this is the updated list that they've submitted, and GDOT has approved this list, and they're asking for you all to do the same.
All right. Any questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. We agree with the list of roadways for radar speed enforcement. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next several items, in fact, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items are all public hearings. Mr. Murray, how are you this evening?
Doing well, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to try to help us out here a little bit and open a public hearing. Ms. Sears is making.
These aren't
No,
this
these
is the
This
request
is our
to
request
set
for a public hearing.
the
So
request.
I'm gonna ask for, all of these to be considered at one time, except for 6 Calhoun Street, which needs to be removed because they've already made arrangements to have that particular, structure demolished. So 170 LaGrange Street, 176 LaGrange Street, 178 LaGrange Street, 8 Alpine Drive, 29 Pinson Street, and 70 Robinson Street. Once again, 170 LaGrange, 176 LaGrange, 178 LaGrange, 8 Alpine Drive, 29 Pinson Street, and 70 Robinson Street you're all requesting a public hearing for March the 22nd, 2022 for repair or demolish resolution on these properties. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
That is correct.
Council understand what we're doing here, setting the date.
Yep.
Is there a motion? that
So
we set
moved.
the date?
Second.
All
I have a
right, thank
question.
you. And the motion and the second is to set the date the same for all of those properties that we've mentioned, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And
any discussion?
I do. I have a
Yes.
question. Are all of these rental properties?
Rental property. They're investor-owned, six of the 7. One is a owner that's not occupied because the house is
Yeah.
not habitable, but the others are investor-owned, yes. So I'm assuming
Okay.
they're renting them out.
So one of these is actually owned by someone who lived in it.
Correct.
Okay, so then I have a question, because when we said we were going to move forward with this, we had said we were going to talk to people who were investors as opposed to owner-occupied. So why is the owner-occupied one in the group?
Well, the one, we have not heard, we've not had any contact from that one particular property.
I can speak to this too, if you don't mind me interrupting.
No, sir.
The person who owns 8 Alpine Drive had a contract on the property to close the week after the storm hit. And they followed through, went ahead and followed through with that contract and bought the property and have not moved forward with doing anything on it. So essentially, I mean, they were renting the property and had a contract on the property to purchase the property. So it wasn't owned by a person who was living in it. The person who was living in it was renting it. And then the storm hit, and then the person who had it under contract went ahead and closed after the storm. They have been in touch with you, I think, as early as today, was my understanding.
Yes, yes, sir.
About that property.
Today, they contacted
That's
us,
right.
yes.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second to set that date. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
The next item is a request for street closures for Main Street events 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. We approve the list of street and sidewalk closures for the Main Street events of 2022. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next is a consideration to exercise the open container amendment of Chapter 3, alcohol beverages during the Main Street Summer Newnan Nights Concert Series in 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. We approve. The request from Main Street. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next item, Mr. Craver, is the contract change order. Consideration for the link, Section C. How are
Mayor
you
Brady,
this evening?
members of the council, what you have in front of you, it will complete the missing link as we've coined it over the past few months. Essentially, as the graphic shows up behind me to your right and left, the section in red is a side path or an extension of a sidewalk section between what will be the terminus of the link in the wooded area shown on the graphic, connecting it to the back of Ashley Park, specifically at One Life Fitness, where the trail currently ends. So this is a side path section. It was taken out of the original contract, which was awarded about 60 days ago. And we asked the current contractor to give us a unit-based price. They kept the pricing from their original contract to extend the portion, again, shown here on the graphic in red. The staff's recommendation is to proceed with the contract as shown.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second that we approve the contract change order, the staff recommendation. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. This is an overview. The next item are the proposed wholesale changes to the current City of Newnan's tree preservation and landscape ordinance. Mr. Furbish, how are you this evening?
Great, Mayor, Council, thank you. Currently, the City of Newnan operates under the tree preservation and landscape ordinance. If I could give you just a little bit of history, back in June of '98, which was actually before I even worked with the city, they adopted a landscape ordinance. In January of 2000, we completely overhauled that ordinance. I spent a majority of my first 2 years rewriting that, and I said it at the time, and I'd say it again, it's a whole lot easier to critique one than it is to write one, that's for sure. But we adopted in January of 2000 the current tree preservation and landscape ordinance. We made some miscellaneous changes in 2003. And while the ordinance has served the city well, and I think that's easily seen in most of our developments over the past 20 years, we're now in 2022 proposing an updated and improved tree conservation and landscape ordinance. Okay. And those are some of the projects that have fallen under the purview of the landscape ordinance. As far as the process of how we've gone about going through these revisions, number one, 20 years plus of implementing and enforcing the ordinance we've seen some things that over time need to change. We've had feedback from both the design, the development, and the construction community. We've had reoccurring comments that we find in our plan reviews and we find in our construction. And we just decided to take a look and try and clean some things up. So we've researched some other ordinances, and we also did several consulting avenues with both state and local officials and even regional officials on landscape ordinances. There are a couple revisions that I'd like to just kind of give a quick overview. There's several of them listed here, and you've received that in your packet. I won't go through all of them. But we've kind of streamlined the permitting and process through this new ordinance. We have established an alternative compliance plan that gives us a little flexibility, which includes a tree bank. We've detailed specific activities where tree bank funds can be expended. We have established the Tree Commission as an Appeals and Alternative Compliance Review Board. We've also reduced some of you can go to the next slide if you would, Megan. We have reduced, one of the problems we ran into is some of our smaller lots that are now being developed that weren't being developed 20 years ago. It requires too many trees to go on those. The residential subdivision will get essentially the same number of trees, but not as many on some of these smaller lots. And that's kind of an overview of the things that we have changed in the ordinance. There's several others, but I've provided all those for you. Don't want to just read the presentation. Okay, Megan, and then these are some of the other developments that we've seen through the years with the landscape ordinance. Okay, and then if there's any questions, I'll take those.
One quick question for you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fobush, will this affect our Tree City USA designation at all?
Absolutely not.
I have one other question. When we were going through that, Mike live in Stonebridge, and we're riddled with the trees that cannibalize the yards, i.e., and also the sidewalks, and I believe they're live oaks, which, is that correct? In where the root system travels along the surface. I just wanted to understand, are those types of trees being discouraged, being planted, so in the future when they're put in a roadway or an easement way, they don't begin to eat up the grass or the existing new sidewalks, et cetera. So can you help me understand?
Number one, it would help because in some of the subdivision, there wouldn't be as many trees planted out in those areas. Some of those are, in fairness, builder-selected trees and where they put them.
Right, understood. So this has nothing to do with what builders can put in, is that my
But
understanding?
there will be fewer to put those in, and we have started to, and that's one of the things in our ordinance when we do our inspections of where some of these trees are being placed. So we do have some say-so or suggestion to the builder as to where they ought to go, that they're not too close to sidewalks or next to utility lines or
Yeah,
things like that.
obviously, it's a, it's a thorn, so to speak,
Sure.
but actually a tree. But anyway, that being
Yes, sir.
said, I just was curious. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Ms. Furbish? If not, I mean, they're gonna come back to us for approval, second meeting in February for this ordinance.
Yes, sir.
And it'll be before you, plenty of time to review it and ask questions. Ms. Furbish, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No action needed on this tonight. Update on the new Treasury guidance for obligations and expenditures under the American Rescue Plan Act. Mr. Moody, how are you this evening?
I'm great, Mayor and Council. I'm glad to be before you again tonight. So I just want to provide a few new updates. The Treasury released the new final rule on January 6th of 2022. And although there were not too many major changes, there were three primary changes that I want to focus on tonight that are going to impact our implementation of these funds. So the changes that we're going to focus on is there's an expanded definition of impacted groups. There is a new requirement for written justifications for capital projects in the public health and negative economic impacts categories. And they have included an opportunity to select one of two options for the revenue replacement category, that at some point Treasury requires us to make a decision on which of the two options we'll select and will indicate on the report when it comes out in April. Right. So for the expanded definition of impacted groups, this essentially grows on what they have already defined. The original definition of disproportionately impacted groups has now been placed on what is titled as impacted groups. These are people who could just indicate essentially a decrease in gross receipts over a period of time as a result of the pandemic, and establishes the disproportionately impacted group as its own definition where they will meet a set of income standards. Generally, speaking, it's moderate income is 300% below the federal poverty guideline, and then low income is considered 185% below. Those are similar eligibility requirements as are in the impacted group. However, it's just a more way to directly impact those groups that experience that harsher impact as a result of the pandemic. You can go to the next, Megan. So the written justification for capital projects, this essentially just decides that any capital projects that are totaling over $1 million will require a written justification to be submitted to Treasury. This is just to ensure that we are expending on a project that is proportional to what the pandemic impact would have been. And this specifically applies to the public health and negative economic impact categories. So if you were to make a public health expenditure to build a new facility for whatever public health reason, you would need to justify it if it was over $1 million. And then for the revenue replacement, this is the greatest change that Treasury has implemented. And this is designed to specifically impact communities like the city of Newnan that on the original course, we would have only received a few $1 million in revenue replacement. This allows us to choose between two options. One, a standard of allowance of up to $10 million, or we can continue on the path of calculating revenue loss every single year. And I want to key in on up to. It is a standard allowance of $10 million, but you are not required to spend $10 million on revenue replacement services. This just gives you the opportunity to, so you can alleviate that administrative burden of having to calculate every single year. If you were to choose the $10 million selection, there still would be $5 million reserved for any external projects that may come along, as well as whatever we do not use out of the $10 million standard allowance. And so currently, application-wise, we have received 20 internal applications, 19 of which will fall under the revenue replacement category, totaling $3,062,444, and 3 external applications and 1 internal application that will be applied to the outside eligibility categories, totaling $2,297,583.
Okay. Action on this tonight?
Mayor Brady, members of the council, there is a time-embedded decision that must be made if in fact this body decides that it would like to take the option for the standard up to $10 million, as Mr. Moody described. That has to be done before April
Yes.
of this year.
Before
So-
April or end of April?
The report is due April 30th. The end of the reporting period is March 30th, so
Okay.
if we could make a decision prior to March, that'd be fantastic.
A decision on that is time embedded, the others are not. It's clarification within the final rule. So we're prepared to answer questions you may have, Andrew, myself, and others, as it's related to that standard $10 million. But we don't, a decision today, no. We don't have an amendment to the resolution that this body adopted at the previous meeting, which is how you would in fact take action on that. However, if there's an indication one way or the other, we can prepare that for you.
What does that mean for, I mean, because, it says up to 10 million, but we received an award of what, 15, somewhere
Yes,
around in
ma'am.
there?
In total, we have the first tranche of 7.5. We'll use round numbers if you will. 7.5 in the bank now, another 7.5 to come. We can take up to 10 million of that total 15 for what we're calling just for, our revenue replacement. Instead of following the standard formula, which gives us that 1 million in change each year throughout, and then the remainder being used in other categories. This would allow us to fund our projects that benefit the community, but mostly revenue replacement category type for City of Newnan, our friends at Newnan Utilities. So there's a decision to be made at some point in the future. Would you like to?
So then that means that any of the external applications, then their pool, so to speak, would be reduced down to, what, 5 million, basically?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily reduced, it's because it's up to 10 million.
Correct.
It gives us more flexibility on what we can use internally and versus externally.
You're both correct.
It gives us a
Yes,
lot more
there's potential
flexibility.
for the reduction if in fact all of the up to 10 million were allocated for revenue replacement activities. It could reduce to the 5, but Councilman Kirkland, you're correct too. We may not use up to the 10. We could use a total of 4 or 6 or another number below the 10, which would then allow for additional funds to be for those other, as Andrew called them in his presentation, external groups.
And although we've got an application on a request for funds on the agenda tonight, we've not been overwhelmed.
No, sir, we only have 2. One is actually a local government authority, they're a redevelopment agency, qualified as an external, and then we have the Community Foundation, and they're prepared to present to you after Mr. Moody.
Yeah,
Right.
and I know
Yes,
of one more that's coming, but,
Yep.
okay.
So I'd like to see the council instruct staff to bring that amendment forward so that we put it on an agenda so that we can actually see it, exactly what it says, and make a decision based on the amendment itself.
Mr.
I
Moody,
agree.
can you speak to, once the council makes the selection, that we cannot choose the other methodology, is that correct?
Yes, that's
It is
correct.
final.
Once you have made a decision on which option you choose, there is no interchanging. It is a done deal.
Okay.
So the one that offers us the most flexibility is going up to 10 million, because we can always choose to shift it
Yes,
some other
ma'am.
way.
Yep.
All right, that makes
You can
sense.
stay at your allotment, 'cause as you recall, directed by this body, Mr. Moody, myself, and others are gonna bring you every application.
Yeah.
Every decision will be made by this body on whether to fund at the requested level, below that level, or at a different level, or to not fund at all. So this
Okay.
body will have that decision.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So is there a motion to instruct?
I'll
staff?
make that motion to instruct staff on, in the words of what the mayor said.
Second.
Yeah, that's really dangerous.
So we're not choosing right at this point, we're
No,
just
no.
giving it to
We're
staff.
instructing them to put
Okay,
the
just
amendment
making sure.
together so we can read the amendment and
Gotcha,
either
yes.
adopt it or not.
Okay, just
We'll
making
bring
sure.
you- We'll bring you an amendment to the original resolution,
Right.
just that contemplates
So,
what we just
question,
described.
is that for the first meeting in February? Is that
I don't know, Mr.
comfortable?
Moody, when do you think you would have that to us?
I can have it then.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Okay, everybody understand where we are, what we're doing? Got it? Any other discussion, questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Moody. You're still up with our application for a request.
Okay. So the request that I'm presenting tonight is made by the Coweta Community Foundation. The foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit eligible to receive funds under the ARPA final rule. The request is for $167,756 to be delivered in the form of a grant for the enumerated use category 2.10, aid to nonprofit organizations. A review of the applicant's supplemental documentation to exhibit qualification based on Treasury eligibility requirements has been completed. It has been determined that the applicant has satisfied the eligibility requirements set by the United States Treasury. The applicant operates within a 2022 qualified census tract, which extends its eligibility category, under which Treasury presumes the entity eligible for certain services. The applicant has satisfied the requirement by exhibiting revenue loss through tax forms as a result of the pandemic. The applicant is requesting that these funds be used as a means of recovering lost revenues in order to provide a nonprofit summit in February, as well as to provide 4 grant cycles that are not related to the tornado. And then an additional 10% to cover administrative costs to put forth the ARPA program in the Community Foundation. So council has the opportunity to accept the proposal as is. You may amend the amount, or you may deny the application entirely. The applicant is also present to answer any questions council members may have for organization-specific or program-specific questions. I will also be here to answer any ARPA-specific questions. All right.
Are there any questions?
I have a couple questions. In their application, there's a couple of, questions and answers back and forth. So on page 159, fourth question down, it asks, how will the proposal have a positive impact on the city of Newnan? Answer, the organizations that may receive grants from CCF serve citizens of Newnan, for example, and I don't know how close these examples are to how things really are, but it says about 50% of Meals on Wheels recipients, about 85% of participants in the Cayeta Forest programs, 90% of Sisters of Society clients, and about 70% of the Backstreet Arts participants are Newnan residents. I just want to make sure, some of these are used for residents that are in the county apparently, 50%, 30%, whatever. Is this something we have to be careful that we're not using funding outside of our municipality, that you should be going to the county commission and asking for funding also, kind of like a shared, dividing it up, what portion of county residents versus city residents, so that it's equitably applied, but also fairly applied. I don't want them coming back to us at some point saying, you've used this funds inappropriately.
And if you'll state your name for the
I
record.
will. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Cynthia Bennett. I am the chair of the Coweta Community Foundation. I am also the president of Meals on Wheels of Coweta, so I can answer that very directly. All of the organizations that are listed in that grant request have been contacted. They are full well capable of identifying the location that their clients live. So for example, those were actually my words. It was a matter of time that we could not give an exact number, plus Meals on Wheels clientele changes. It shifts through attrition, you can imagine. But when the grant is awarded to that organization, we can request that they report back the numbers of Newnan residents that were served by that specific dollar amount that they were awarded.
And are you also applying with the county for revenue replacement as well?
Not for revenue replacement, no. We've got another project that we're
Okay.
working on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question for Mr. Moody. And this kind of goes back to what the previous discussion was about. Looking, and I appreciate all that the Cayeta Foundation does. Y'all do a lot. So I'm not trying to discount what you do here. I just want to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's appropriately. If you head back to page 155 of your agenda, which is page 43 of the ARPA stuff, there's a section under program administration called transfers. The very first sentence there, recipients may undertake projects on their own or through subrecipients which carry out eligible uses on behalf of a recipient.
Yes.
Are these projects that the city, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, are these projects the city would be carrying out that we're now allowing the Coweta Foundation to do for us? Because we've never done the Meals on Wheels, we've never done any of these projects. So are we appropriately using this money as a sub-recipient of what we would be doing?
So the final rule clarifies with two definitions. It provides a definition for a beneficiary or a subrecipient. As I am interpreting this application, the Coweta Community Foundation would be a beneficiary and not a subrecipient, which would essentially allow them to expend on whatever services they provide, so long as those services would fit within eligible uses of ARPA.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I just want to make sure we're crystal clear on all that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve $167,756 for Coweta Community Foundation.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and second. Any other questions or comments regarding the motion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Mr. Moody, we appreciate it. Under unfinished business, this is a continuation of a public hearing, annexation request for Annex 2021-01 by Poplar Road 2020 LLC, 42.20 acres of Poplar Road, tax parcel 087-205-001, 087-205-002, 087-205-003. The requested zoning of MXD, mixed-use development, for 350 multifamily units, 155 active adult senior units, 101 townhomes, 450 square feet of office space, 140 key hotel, 75,200 square feet of retail restaurant space, and a 1,500 seat amphitheater and parking deck, and a consideration of ordinances. Ms. Donovan, how are you?
Doing well, thank you very much. As you recall, this annexation was continued from the December meeting to allow the applicant to address concerns and issues that have been raised by the council as well as the public during the hearing process. The applicant is now ready to present the revised master plan for your consideration. Major changes include the 3 changes previously agreed to, which was elimination of the right-in, right-out on Poplar, an addition of an exiting lane at the traffic signal on Poplar Road, and then townhouses, they're going to be fee simple and not rental. New changes, they're proposing to move the hotel to the east side of the town center to go over the retail, and that will replace the previously proposed office units that were over the retail. The building heights are being lowered to a maximum of 5 stories. That's broken down in the memo you received in your packet. One of the office buildings is being eliminated. That's 150,000 square feet. That'll leave 450,000 square feet, which is down from the 622,800 originally proposed for office. The initial office building will have a surface parking lot, and then when the 2 additional buildings are constructed, that will be a parking deck that will serve all 3. The screening on the parking deck will face the interstate. They're also proposing a 1,500-seat amphitheater with views of the ponds and pocket parks for to be provided throughout the project. An updated community impact assessment has been included in your packet, and for additional details, I'll let the applicant provide those.
Thank you, Ms. Donovan. Okay, this is an opportunity for the applicant to come forward and state their continuation of the case. Ms. Griffiths, how are you?
Just fine. How are you, Mr.
We are
Mayor?
on the clock tonight,
Yes, sir.
15 minutes for each side.
Yes, sir.
applicant, And then those opposed to that application. So clock starts now, 7:08.
Thank you. Melissa Griffiths, 32 South Court Square, Newnan, Georgia, 30263. We're happy to come back again tonight and go over the changes that have been made. I've got Hal Berry with Berry Properties, John Shute with Davis and Young, Mr. John Wieland is here as well, and Brian West with Kimley Horn is here to answer any civil engineering or traffic questions. The staff has continued to work very hard with us, and we appreciate it. Per the ordinance, the residential and commercial building permits must be obtained simultaneously, and the developer understands that and is happy to do it. The DRI review was successful along with the Three Rivers Commission report. This included an outside engineering firm to prepare a traffic study that was reviewed, discussed, and analyzed by Greta, by Three Rivers Commission, by the City of Newnan engineer, by Coweta County's engineer, and the Berry team. I'm going to let John Shute go through MP12 and point out these changes that Ms. Donovan just referenced. And if there is time, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to save it for rebuttal. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, good evening, council, and good evening, all the citizens that are here. I'm John Shoup with Avis and Young, thank you, working with Hal Berry Properties for this development. With respect to, can you go to the master plan, please? Next one. There we go. Highlight the changes that were done. They are outlined by Melissa as well as Tracy. Major changes included, as we talked about, no right in, right out anymore off of Poplar Road. That's been abandoned, and in lieu of that, we've added an extra exit lane pursuant to traffic studies about the load there. We've also moved the hotel that was at that corner to the east side of the retail town center area, and the hotel is on top of the retail. We've eliminated the office over retail in order for the hotel to be accommodated there. Hotel is a 140 key room hotel. We've also eliminated one of the office buildings in order to make room for item number 15 here, which is a 1,500 to 2,000 seat amphitheater. We have room for 2,000. We're working with a number of consultants in order to zero in on the exact size. We've also working with consultants for operators of that amphitheater to decide which is the best size. Is it 1,500 or is it 2,000? So we have room for both. We have room for either, excuse me. But with respect to the office building, each office building is 150,000 square feet, so a total of 450,000 square feet. We've eliminated 150,000 square feet of office and the 150,000 square feet of cars, which is 600 cars, from the complex, thereby eliminating those number of trips. The amphitheater, as we all know, operates after hours, traditionally after hours and weekends, which is when the offices aren't in use. Therefore, we had a zero impact in terms of parking deck and surface parking area. The Phase 1 delivery project will be this office building at the corner there and surface park. We're not building the parking deck until we build those other two office buildings, at which time the parking deck will replace the surface parking, and the parking deck will be large enough to accommodate all three office buildings, as well as accommodate all the parking for the amphitheater as well. We have heard the considerations about heights of the buildings. At 150,000 square feet, each office building will be a 30,000 square foot floor plate, so only 5 stories, and office buildings are 14 feet floor to floor, so that's 70 feet of height there, 15 feet below the 85-foot height. The residential remains at 4 stories at this part, and 5 stories over the retail section. Residential is traditionally only 10 feet floor to floor, so that's 40 feet for this part of the residential, and 55 feet for this part of the residential area. All other retail is single level. The hotel over the retail section over here will be 4 stories. Again, hotel is 10 feet floor to floor, and retail, so that will be 50 feet to 55 feet there. The active adult over 55 community is 4 stories, and 10 feet, that's only 40 stories. And the residential townhomes will be 3 stories, and in select locations, 4 stories, with the 4th story being a rooftop deck or patio in select locations. Part of this project is also about is connection to the link and connectivity to the city. We believe that that's very important. The link traveling through the property helps the synergy of the project and helps the community as well. Pocket parks throughout the site will be provided. We have a very large amount of green space, not just around the amphitheater, not just around the pavilion, but in amongst the buildings where we provide pause points for citizens and customers to actually pause there. We will provide all the necessary landscape amenities, benches, and chairs, and the like. With respect to the next part of the presentation I want to go into is that Berry Company was very instrumental in approaching this project from a team approach. Hal Berry has one skill set, well actually lots of skill sets, but one major focus in his career, which is office. He knows that he needs to bring in a multifamily developer to do the multifamily. He has a very limited skill expertise in that. He understands that active adult over 55 is another developer, and the townhomes is a third developer. So he has gone over the past few months finding the best-in-class developers, and we want to present the best-in-class developers as part of the presentation. Would you mind going to the second disc and just pick up any one of the 3 files that are there? Okay, this is John Whelan. I'd like to introduce John Whelan, and he will be responsible for the townhome project.
Mr. Whelan, welcome.
So I'm John Whelan. I have the opportunity to build in Shenandoah probably 40 years ago. And it'd be a real privilege to be able to build in Newnan now. And how do I?
Next slide, please.
So these are homes that we have built recently, townhomes. And one thing that's important about our townhome layout is it's all alley serves. The cars will all be behind the homes. Next. And other streetscapes, these particular homes are in Woodstock. Next. Next. So one thing that's so great about townhomes is they're very, very livable if they're designed right, even though they are narrow, relatively speaking, and they provide a great alternative to the single-family home in terms of lifestyle. We have about 5 interior slides here. We'll just click through them quickly. And this is my last slide. And I don't want to be immodest, but I think we're as good as it comes when it comes to townhomes in Atlanta. And I think that we would add a real nice element of a really fantastic development property place. Thank you very much.
Mr. Whelan, one question quickly. Do you know a range of retail price for that product? Just a range?
A range of retail price?
Yes.
So this past year, in terms of what we've done, the least expensive townhome we sold was $399,000, and the most expensive townhome we sold was $1,300,000. So we're an upper end builder, and that's really probably the exception in townhomes.
Right, thank you. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for being here.
Go to the next category, please. Mayfair. Mayfair, the two developers for Mayfair is Neil Freeman and Jason Joseph. We made a presentation with the Mayfair team to Cletus and Hasco several weeks ago. The team also developed a sports complex up at Lake Point as well too. And this is in downtown Alpharetta. Downtown Alpharetta became the impetus for moving the hotel off the corner to part of the retail. They said we had the location wrong. Hal, you were correct. And they said it's the synergy the hotel creates is what's necessary for this project. So now the hotel is in the town center over the retail. Next slide, please. Next slide. And these are the rooms, normal appointed rooms. The room rate for this hotel is $250 a night and up. But it includes a lot more amenities than that, as you will see. The rooms are larger than a normal hotel room and better appointed. Next. And they feature an outdoor patio. This outdoor patio, in this instance, will be located on the roof of this hotel, which provides a wonderful overlook and opportunity to overlook the development, the project, the neighborhood, and the community, as well as the retail happening down below. Next. They also feature a fitness center as part of one of their amenities. Next. And what they do have, which sets them apart in downtown Alpharetta, is 8,000 square feet of meeting space. The meeting space is used obviously by community, by individuals, by small businesses, and by the government as well. But the meeting space is also viewed as, next slide. That's another view of, at this development, Alpharetta, they had the ability to be on a V-shaped lot, so their courtyard was kind of sequestered and in the middle there. Thank you. And with respect to the black awning area, they also feature a dining area and what they call a speakeasy, which is an actual simulation of a speakeasy 1920s where you knock on the door, give the secret password to gain entrance to the facility. It's a neat feature that they have. It's very popular at this development. Next, please. And this reception area, they host weddings and small receptions as part of their programs and their marketing strategy. And they have the space, so the receptions will be up on the roof in the cafe area, and the reception area is in the banquet room as well. Next. And the view of the Hamilton in the evening hours. A high-quality hotel in terms of design and price point as well. Next category, please. Okay, you've heard this presentation before. Greystar is the developer for the multifamily. Greystar, next slide please, is perhaps the largest developer of multifamily in the country, several billion under their management. They do not sell. They own their product. They develop the product, they build their product. They're the sixth largest contractor, if they were just in the contracting business, to build multifamily. They build their own, they hold their own, and they manage their own. Next, please. And as you can see in their locations, they're all throughout the northern arc of Atlanta here. They realize that the southern part of Atlanta is a market for them and is a market that they've, I don't want to say overlooked, but they realize it's a market opportunity for them. And the Poplar Place location is a great location for them for their product. Next, please. Halcyon, I don't think you need to hear about Halcyon, is a development where they have the multifamily as well as the active adult over 55. They have 300 units of multifamily and 200 units of active adult for a total of 500 units there. They believe in luxuriously appointed lobbies. This is one of the projects. Next. This is another one of the projects. Next. And a third project, as you can see from the lobby of their multifamily projects. Next. They also believe in pools and amenities for the properties. There will be a pool planned because of the design and the project. And if you count the stories here, you see 4 stories here, and that's what they're planning here, except there'll be a 5th story because one of the stories is over the retail section. Next. You've seen our elevations. Their elevations and design is sympathetic to what we're planning for Poplar Place. Next. And their interiors, similar to John Whelan's interiors, are appointed very well with proper appliances, tile, countertops, stone, cabinetry, and the like. Next. And another inside shot of another project with the pool area. And finally, this is an over 55 community in Sarasota, Florida. Very nice community, very well appointed, and has the same type of level of details. That's it for this presentation.
John, same question to Mr. Whelan. What's the price point, the rental rate point in this particular case?
Minimum price point here will be $2.50 a square foot. Minimum square footage here will be approximately 800 square feet. They'll have studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. They have not given any consideration at all for 3-bedroom units at this point in time. So starting at $250, I just was noting a project they opened in Savannah, Georgia, $4.50 a square foot for the rent. I'm not saying this market is ready for $450, no, but starting at $250 with deck parking and a highly amenitized project, they're going to hit the market very well here.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our formal presentation, and now we have an opportunity for anybody else in the audience who wants to speak in favor of the project, please.
Well, you've got a minute. So.
I know, you've got 1 minute, I know. I'm watching the clock.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Norman Lundeen, 635 Sullivan Road, Newnan. I've been a resident of Newnan since 1990. My background is, I'm going to take this off so you can hear me. My background is a registered architect, city planning director, international project manager, United States Air Force regional planner, Air Force base civil engineer, and other municipal activities, some here in Newnan. I have studied the various iterations of the plan that Barry Companies and his team has proposed to address comments from the board and public meetings. They have done a masterful job of addressing all these ideas. Some of the other comments have been about traffic, loss of trees, changing the character of Newnan, and where is the workforce housing part of the plan. To address these comments in more detail, a meeting with the citizens and the development team.
Mr. Lundeen, you're running short of time. In fact, you're already over. If you can capsulize what you're saying.
Oh, well, let me go to the last page.
That'd be, yeah. And I'll give the opposition the set for time, too.
Okay. We had a meeting at the Chick-fil-A, and out of that, we had a great discussion with Hal. And the final comment there is we all felt that the Chamber of Commerce was correct in asking Hal Berry and his associates to look at this site and propose a project that would be a valuable asset to Newnan. The consensus to everyone in that meeting was to give Hal and his project a nod of approval. This Popular Place plan is the right project
the right location, and the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so they went to 17 minutes, and we appreciate that. This is an opportunity for anyone who is opposed to the project to come forward and speak. Keep in mind, we're on the clock, and an additional 2 minutes have been added, so we're at 17 minutes. How are you, sir?
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Scott Barrington, 20 Wesley Street, and I come to you tonight just to ask you to consider not approving this project, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not in Newnan, so you have to go and pull it into Newnan to make it part of Newnan, right? So that's part of the annexation request. The second piece is with the apartments. When we see all of these things, it looks great, it looks pretty. I think you have the opportunity to do a lot of the same stuff at Caldwell Tanks, and so I'm happy to see where that goes as you're now starting to work on it. But, you know, we don't need more apartments. I think you've said it yourself. We have 1,000 units that haven't even been built yet that are already approved, right? And now you're going to build 350 more. This is not the right thing for Newnan. It doesn't add to the property values of our homeowners who are represented here. And so I ask you not to approve this, not to annex this property into the city. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Petrino, 26 Piedmont Drive, 30265. While I appreciate the changes that have been made to the project since November, they are not significant enough to earn my support or the support of others that I have spoken with. I have many reasons for this position, in which you probably received my emails about that, but I am most adamantly opposed to the 30-year tax abatement that the developer is asking for and rarely mentions. According to the developer's own numbers that he provided to us, the city, county, and school system will only receive about 42.7% of what should be paid in taxes on this property over the next 30 years if the abatement is awarded. I am concerned our property taxes will have to be raised to pay for the impact this project will cause to our road infrastructure, schools, emergency services, etc. No other project has ever been granted a 30-year tax abatement, especially during a time of tremendous growth like we are experiencing. You will be setting a precedent. This is an insult to existing and future taxpayers in this city. In addition, the City of Newnan Comprehensive Plan Vision Statement talks about the historic character and small-town southern charm of the City of Newnan. This project does not fit into that description. It is an urban development being put into the wrong environment. Many residents, like my own family, moved here because we didn't want to live in places like Marietta or Alpharetta or Sandy Springs. We don't want to be a highly sought-after institutional office node like the proposal states. Newnan is a special place, and people desire to live here precisely because we are not those places. The decision that you make today could permanently change Newnan forever. Please listen to the constituents that have shown up here today to voice their opposition and that have emailed and called expressing their concerns and asking you to vote no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we don't allow signs in our meetings, so you can lower those or take them outside, one of the two. How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you, Mayor Brady? I'm Kim Heinley, 27 Alpine Drive, Newnan, Georgia. And I know firsthand of a business in the city limits that has increased its warehouse space, and our taxes were doubled. The same business is being encroached upon by apartments. Within a short amount of time of residents moving in the new units, there was a violent murder that took place at the complex in the cover of darkness. The 27 employees of the business I reference arrive and depart after dark and in the wee hours of the morning. We need to invest in keeping our citizens safe and our existing infrastructure in good shape, not annexing more property into the city, and rather than giving incentives to help investors. The manufacturing company I reference has paid taxes in the city for 20 years and employs people who reflect the demographics of the area in their education levels. The average pay of their employees is $70,000 per year, and the businesses uses local companies for some supply chain needs and a local attorney and bank, yet does not have decent roads leading to and from the business. Why would the council not invest in what is here now rather than annex more into the city to be taken care of?
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Ron Warner. I live at 14 Asheville Place. I'm a CPA and I have my master's degree in tax law. I'd like to focus on my two major concerns. The one is the 30-year tax abatement. I think the 30-year tax abatement is the financial injustice to the taxpayers in the city, the county, and the school system. It amounts to $108 million a year, $108 million over 30 years. The 30-year tax abatement means that Berry companies receive a 57% tax break for 30 years. Berry companies will pay only 43% of what the company would normally pay for 30 years. Thus, the Newnan residents pay more for police, the fire department, school system needs for 30 years, including the need for 4 additional police officers and vehicles. I am concerned how the community will be affected. The financial projection prepared by the developer is based on the best-case scenario and ignores fluctuations in the economic uncertainty from interest rates, inflation, unemployment, and cost of living, and a possible recession, all of which factor into the success of the project and could have a negative impact. In short, neither the developer nor the city can accurately predict the impact of foregoing 30 years of tax revenue. This is the first time that the city of Newnan has considered allowing a 30-year tax abatement. The developer should be able to financially fund this project. How is the city going to say no to the next developer who also asks for a tax abatement? Granting a tax abatement during a time of growth and economic uncertainty is irresponsible to the citizens. The traffic study. I reviewed the traffic study provided by the developer. It indicates a traffic flow of approximately 14,000 to 17,000 vehicles per day. The city and the county do not have the funds needed to address the widening of Poplar Road. A project of this magnitude should not be approved without a plan to fund the widening of the roads. Based on these factors, I strongly urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. I'm Ann Short-Shearhart, and I too urge you to vote no on this proposal. I once again recall you, as I stated in my email to you, actually I think in both emails I've sent, I want to refer you to the vision statement that all of you approved and that people of Newnan approved of in 2021. Quote, Newnan will continue to successfully blend its historic character and small-town southern charm with unique lifestyle opportunities, including promoting cultural arts, supporting educational excellence, and balancing economic development. Please tell me how Poplar Place fulfills this vision. It fails to blend the historic character and small-town feel that many of us have appreciated about it. Instead, it brings to Newnan an imbalance of economic development because it continues to add to the overdevelopment of the east side of Newnan. It also includes, as other people have mentioned, more apartments than we could possibly need. Secondly, this plan proposes to offer over 3,000 permanent jobs, and yet in phase one, many of these jobs are low-paying jobs because it relies on the hotel. I don't care if it's a luxury hotel, the workers are still going to be making low wages. You can work in a Ritz-Carlton for Marriott, and it doesn't matter because you're still making low wages. That is also true of retail jobs and the restaurant components. The construction jobs that are better paying jobs are temporary, but the possibility of the professional opportunities that are also at the core of phase one lacks any concrete information because I have yet to hear about any client that is actually interested in this project. So, in other words, to me, this seems like more of the same that we already have: restaurants, retail, and another hotel. I would also like to hear some solid evidence about why any of us taxpayers should agree to a 30-year abatement. 30 years! Consider, for a few seconds, what has happened in our economy since 1992. That's 30 years. We have had 3 recessions and 1 pandemic. And yet, if you approve this proposal, our city will be tied to this 30-year abatement no matter what happens. That will affect the revenue stream. And we will not be able to do anything about that. And instead, the burden will fall on us, the citizens of Newnan. This is a bad deal for taxpayers. We are being asked to support a developer who gets a 56% tax rate. This is also a bad deal for our infrastructure, and I would like everyone here who is against this project to raise their hand. We have sent you emails, we came to the November meeting, and once again, we are begging you to please stop this project. Thank you.
Thank you. There's 5 minutes remaining. Next. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks. Evening, everybody. My name is still Tim Ross. I'm just a couple of clarifications for myself. Is this going to be a final vote for this evening by the city council?
I don't know that yet.
Oh, okay. So if there was a final vote and it was approved or disapproved, you have stated in the past that the county, the city, and the school board would have to approve. Could they override one of those votes, or have they already done so?
I think you're talking about the tax abatement?
Yes.
Okay. The city and the county, somebody stop me if I get this wrong, need to approve, but the school board has no
Oh, okay. I thought you said all 3
say
did. Okay.
in this at all. And the fact of the matter is, if we vote not to annex this tonight, for the city of Newnan, there's never a penny of tax revenue.
Right.
Ever.
Okay.
Regardless of what is built there and approved by the county.
All right.
So I think, and so that's an issue I think that people aren't realizing, that there's no revenue at all for the city if it's not annexed.
Got it. And then the second question I have is, there was or is a moratorium on apartment building growth?
No longer. That went away with the
All right, so they would not
adoption of
have, this would not have to be.
comprehensive land use plan.
Okay.
Right.
So, and several of the other points were already pointed. I'm not going to waste time with that, but again, I would like to voice my opinion to please vote no. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, 4 minutes? Yes, ma'am?
Can I say one more thing?
Sure. 4 minutes?
I just wanted to address your comment about right now it's county property, and if you don't annex it, you'll get nothing until the next person comes along and asks you to annex it with a better project with no abatement. That the city would then get everything they deserve. Is that correct?
You're asking me to say something is either correct or incorrect that
I'm
possibly
asking
may
if
never happen. I can't do that.
If you didn't approve this, and then a different developer came forward and asked for an annexation without an abatement, and the city council approved that annexation, then the city would receive taxes from that. I'm right, right?
I assume you're right, if in fact someone else came along.
I'm just making the point that that's a possibility.
I have to say, I had a meeting with 2 of the owners, with city staff in attendance, and they don't know a Plan B. They honestly
2 of what owners?
I'm sorry, but they honestly don't have a Plan B. They don't know what the next person is. It could be anything, and it could be something that they would take to the county and get approved. There's no guarantee that the next person is going to come to the city and ask us for annexation.
Then be that as it may. There's other projects that are approved just by the county, and they're approved.
That's correct.
Right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of minutes left. Anyone else?
Carrie Palmer, 25 Asheville Place,
Yes.
30265. I actually did not plan to speak tonight, but I come to you as a mother and a teacher. and looking at the schools that are going to be affected by all these apartments. You're looking at Welch Elementary, Lee Middle, and East Coweta High School, which are all already at or over capacity. I have 4 children, 1 daughter that's already graduated, and East Coweta was overcrowded at the time, at 2017 when she graduated, and it concerns me the number of the increase on schools without the tax revenue that's going to come in from it. So I would ask that you vote no on this.
Thank you, we appreciate you being here. Minute left. Anyone?
Mr. Mayor, one last thing, just to address your last comment.
So, you need to say your name again.
Scott Barrington, 20 Wesley Street, sorry. To address your last comment that, they don't have a Plan B, that's okay, right? They don't have to. That's not our problem. We have to worry about what's best for Newnan, not the owners of that property.
I agree.
And so,
Okay, 30 seconds left. Anybody has 30 seconds worth of comment? Be happy to hear it.
I would just like to say.
You're going to need to come to the microphone, please, and state your name again.
Ann Short Shearhart, and just very quickly, first of all, please remember the fact that we are called the City of Homes. The City of Homes, not apartments. And at one point, all of you rejected a proposal at Caldwell because of the apartments. We're just asking for similar treatment. And secondly, I'm tired of hearing about the threat of Buc-ee's. I don't know anything about this Buc-ee's things, and as some of the other people have said, we also have options, and we do not need to sit around and have Buc-ee's held over our head like a cudgel. We can make our decisions, we are organized, and if something like that threatens to come here, we will meet them the same way we are talking to you now. Thank you.
Okay. I have several questions, and I don't know if the council members have any other questions about anything, but there were.
Yes.
Okay, a couple of things that were brought up. One, the tax abatement. I think someone from this other team needs to bring some clarity to that. Who wants to take that shot? My particular question is, there are tax revenues that are generated and received by the city during the entire process. Will you step through that?
Absolutely. Based upon a current model, it's a preliminary model, not a final model, based upon the current model, on the average, the total yearly revenue stream received by the city, the county, and the school is $2.6 million for the 30 years. When the 30-year expires.
That includes, that's net of abatement, is that correct?
That is the net amount, yes.
Right, okay.
That's the net amount. After the 30 years expires, the amount of money for the city, the county, and the school is $10.3 million.
Okay.
Could I ask a point to clarify that?
Sure.
That's based on the assumption that the tax rate does not change over the course of 30 years.
We were very conservative in our modeling with FMS underwriters who's underwriting the bond program if we go that way. They kept the millage rate, the flat millage rate for all 30 years. And as we all know, I've never seen a millage rate stay flat for 30 years.
Correct. Okay.
So they took a conservative approach based upon our direction to them.
Okay. And then
So-
another question that I have regarding the maintenance of streets and roads. What portion of the streets and roads in this development are private versus public?
It's an issue we are working out. The city streets and roads will be developed pursuant to city standards.
Right, sure,
Okay.
of course.
The maintenance of the city streets and roads, it was not intended to any of the city streets and roads to be dedicated to the city because of setbacks, landscaping, and other features we want to maintain. So to answer your question, the maintenance of the streets would fall upon the developer at this point in time.
Okay, sure. And then all the other development costs are laid upon the developer. There's no ask here of the city to do any development cost on that site. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in fact, the DRI findings by both Greta and Three Rivers required improvements to a number of intersections. extra turn lanes in order to satisfy all their findings, and those are costs to be borne by the developer.
Okay, any other questions from council? Mr. Alexander?
You said that 2.6 million would go to the tax.
Yeah, that's an average over the 30 years.
Right.
Yeah, it starts off smaller and goes
If we
bigger.
did not give the tax abatement, how much would that number be?
All depends upon the valuation of the property. Based upon our valuation of the property, it would probably double that amount. Because our calculations show that the ask amount is 54.7%. I heard 40% repeated, or 40% stated tonight. Our calculations and our model is 54.7%.
Okay.
So that's why you almost get double the money.
Okay, one more question. You said the streets would not be maintained by the city. 5 years down the road, who's gonna, 10 years down the road, or 15, who's gonna maintain those streets to the proper?
Again, it would have to be the developer or the homeowners association that has to be established amongst all the developers that would participate in this project.
And the homeowners association, would that be comprised of?
All the owners of the property. It would be John Whelan for, the townhomes. It would be a Berry Companies for the office. It would be the Mayfair for the hotel. It would be Gray Star for the multifamily and the active adult.
It'd be similar to any other subdivision that has an HOA that charges an annual fee for.
Right, and that's a whole nother discussion. We haven't gone down the path yet, is what's the pro rata share allocated to all those?
That's
And
correct.
how much do they have to ante up and all that?
Right.
So the 505 renters would also have to have an association fee?
It would be the owner of the development. It would be,
Okay,
Gray Star at this point in
Okay.
time, yeah.
all right, thank you.
No, individuals are not part of the homeowners. Now, we haven't gotten into the detail on townhomes. Are they responsible, or is it the owner of the whole complex?
Right, right.
One other question regarding the
may I was-
bonds and the tax abatements, if you don't mind.
No, go
Just
ahead.
one other quick question. Does the city or the county or the school board have any liability toward those bonds and the
No.
repayment of those bonds?
If the developer defaults on the bonds, fails to execute the project, it's the bondholders, it's the it's the firms that buy the bonds, they're the ones that are responsible. City, county, and school board have no responsibility at all on the default on the project.
Taxpayers of the city of Newnan or the county or the school? would
Nothing.
Have no liability?
Nothing.
Mr. Gill?
So for the sake of clarity, though, on this, since really the school board, basically, what I heard the mayor say, has really no say in this, but it has to have a collaboration between city and county, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do you have to have, so this project has to be annexed and approved, and then you move down, best I understand it, then you move the SSD bonds, and then you move to the tax abatement, correct?
SSD bonds are the tax.
Yeah,
is the tax
well, it just
abatement.
shows
Yeah,
in here,
process-
in the
yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my question is,
The county won't entertain this process until they know that there is an actual project to entertain on.
right, so it's like, approve it and then you figure it out. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
Okay. So that being said, you have to have this abatement to get this project done, right? You have to have a 30-year abatement.
We've requested the 30-year abatement,
Yeah.
yes. I'm going
And
to
this
answer
is-
the question, yes.
Is this typically what you ask for in any project that you do? What's the lowest you've ever asked for in a project, and what is the most you've received up to date?
This would be the lowest we've asked for.
The lowest.
I'm in the process of a project in Cincinnati, Ohio, $246 million in tax abatement. We closed on a project in Plano, Texas, $552 million in tax abatement.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I do.
All right.
This, what we're undertaking today, are we making a decision tonight on the actual tax abatements?
No.
Okay.
The decision tonight is annexation and approval of zoning.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that. And if this is approved, but later on the tax abatement is not, what happens to this project?
We would have to, I'll let Mr. Berry answer that question. We'd have to analyze it to a point and see what the financial returns are. I mean, building the parking decks in order to get the density necessary to make this project become a place of popular and a highly amenitized project to attract the office users. That is, one of the costs driving up. Also, the amphitheater, also the utilities as well, too. It's a dense project, there's no doubt about it.
Going back to the multifamily, Gray Star, you said that they build and then they own and hold the properties. What is their average length of ownership of their projects?
I want to say, based upon an article I recently read, average length of ownership tends to be 10-plus years.
And then they sell?
Then they sell, yes.
So it's an investment for them to just turn,
10 years,
kind of flip.
yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean-
yeah, I understand, but I mean,
Yeah.
you said earlier that they typically hold their properties.
10-plus years, yes, that would be an extended hold period.
Mr. Aiken?
Sorry, I'm going through my notes because some of y'all have asked my questions already. What is the height on the deck?
Height on the
Height of the
deck.
deck would be no taller than, we can't have the deck taller in office buildings from optics sakes. The height of the deck will be probably shorter, because deck heights are 10 feet floor to floor, or slab to slab, and to accommodate 1,800 cars in the triple bay situation that we're planning on right now, it will probably be 4 stories, if not 5 stories. So we're talking a deck that's probably 15 to 20 feet shorter than the office buildings.
So just for, it's all up, there's no down?
There is no down, no, it's all above grade, yeah, from grade level and up.
And then I have some questions about the amphitheater, and I've expressed this with our team. I'm concerned about noise. So are you all, I don't want us in a situation where we have contention with music going on too long and they come back to us to say, hey, you need to turn that music down. So do you have any provisions with your, or at least in conversations right now, to make sure that there's that is taken care of, the people moving in, people purchasing, all know that there's an amphitheater and that there's an agreed upon time to cut this off?
Conversations to date with one potential operator, Hal is requesting 10 PM as a shut-off time.
Can I piggyback on that sound? Would it be okay?
Sure.
With relationships to the sound, I live in Stonebridge, so I can sit on my patio and I hear the hum of 85. So that being said, what studies have you done, if you're going to put the amphitheater in there, that to mitigate the sound coming from 85, whether it's a wall or I know there's some buffer areas there, but there's a lot of buffer between myself and 85, for example, off of Lower Fayetteville Road. So when you're talking about putting on concerts and things of that sort, do you foresee any issues with sound that would prevent people actually truly enjoying a conference? I mean, I like the Eagles, so if you plan on getting the Eagles there, that'd be great. So, but I'd like to be able to hear them.
11,000 seats for them, I'm sorry. The amphitheater is a concept that's generated from December to where we are right now. We have a layout, we have a plan, we're talking with a number of operators, and we know we have to address the sound issue. That's an issue. Have we gotten that far in terms of audio, hiring audiologists to be part of our program? No, but that's definitely part of our program because we know sound carries. It's a much more pleasant sound than the 85 hum, though, I'll tell you that.
Understood.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Mr. Alexander?
Who will maintain the amphitheater long-term?
Again, we haven't discussed ownership structure of the amphitheater. Is it the city? Is it the county? Is it the developer? Is it a joint venture between all of the above? Don't know. We're in the process right now of we have space and opportunity for an amphitheater. It's a great use for the site. Its location back by the pond is tremendous. It's a wonderful amenity, and it's a wonderful opportunity for the community to be more engaged with the property.
Thank you.
May I ask another question?
Yes, sure.
Let's say, for example, should your project be approved? So it's approved, you move forward, everything falls into place. What is the build time and turn time to get into the potential of Phase 2? But most importantly, the completion of Phase 1 to get it to the point where you actually have occupancy that moves you into Phase 2. So are you looking at a 2, 5, 10-year build? What is typically, what have you found if everything goes the way you plan?
1 year for site work, 2 year for build, so 3 years.
And then, so, 3 years, okay. 3 years would be starting where occupancy would be okay.
Yeah, and it's always been our intention that all the residential components all start at the same time. The multifamily,
Yeah.
the active adult, and the townhomes.
Okay. Thanks, appreciate it.
And the town center, excuse me, thank you, Hal, and the town center,
Yeah.
because we can't tell people we have this wonderful amenity of retail in the town center with restaurants and not have the restaurants.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I've got quite a few questions, you just bear with me, ask
Sure.
for your indulgence on this. Going back to the amphitheater, is this gonna be private, as in a closed venue where they can sell tickets, or is it open, kind of an open air amphitheater where anybody can kind of come and go?
It'll be a pay-for performance, yeah.
Okay, and I'm just.
For certain events, I mean, if the city wants to hold high school graduation there,
Yeah, no, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I didn't know if it was gonna be like gated, chained in, whatever. Because my question is, and as I look at the link, it goes right across the stage area or something like that. I know this is a gross picture.
Yeah.
I get that. Will there have, that will be able to accommodate the link without impediment?
yes, that, absolutely, because we envision people using the link to go to the concert. So there needs to be some proximity and connectivity with the link and the amphitheater. Haven't worked out the detail at this point in time.
Okay. I asked a question back at the last meeting about the link and the traffic on Poplar. Have you addressed that at all? Again, because it's great that you're taking the link from one end of the property to the other end of the property, but it leaves that totally unsolved thing, connecting it across Poplar to the rest of that leg of the link. And we know going over, under, or across Poplar is going to be a big venture, especially if you go straight across, and now you're tying up traffic even more. So, has that been addressed? Have you?
No, we've had a number of discussions on that, because the link, the original design for the link was to Newnan Crossings Boulevard and connect to Piedmont Hospital as well. Their plans and planning did not show the overpass, underpass, it showed sidewalk connection. A crosswalk connection, excuse me.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm just looking at, with this, with the extra traffic revenue, and I believe somebody pointed out however many thousands more traffic generated with the link, because the link is a daytime use only linear park.
Yes, they have no, yeah, there's no lighting on the link.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's going to be used during the daytime when there's most traffic. And so that's going to be a huge consideration. I mean, it's consideration already, but it's going to be even larger once you have that much more traffic generated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, and we will, yeah, we have to address that. We have to address that with the hospital, because they're on the other side of the path.
Correct, yeah. And, and just being good neighbors.
Right.
With that whole thing. I just, let me see, sorry, I've got questions all over the place here. Regarding the parking spaces that we talked about, how many total surface parking spaces and how many deck parking spaces was the total?
600 parking spaces are in the multifamily deck, approximately 600 spaces. In the deck that would accommodate the 3 office buildings, it's 1,800 spaces, so approximately 2,400 spaces. There are over 3,000 surface parking spaces when you consider all the residential as well, too. The townhomes will have parking spaces in their garages underneath the townhomes. The active adult will have surface parking spaces as well as a garage. The retail is surface parked, the hotel is surface parked.
Okay.
And we try to break up these parking areas so you don't have the sea of asphalt.
Yeah.
As you can see, the parking is obviously close to its use, or adjacent to its use.
Absolutely. Is any of the parking going to be private parking? Is there
No.
going to be like, okay,
No.
so there's not going to be any private roads, there's not going to be any of that stuff going on?
The townhomes, you're right, the townhomes will be private parking because of the garages underneath
Correct, okay.
their units, yeah.
But there won't be any, like, it won't be a gate, that section won't be gated off or anything?
No,
Okay. So we've addressed this before regarding fee simple, ownership. Regarding those 101 fee simple townhomes or any other fee simple or owned residences, are you willing to proffer via covenant that no more than 10% of your properties will be rentals?
I will defer that question to John.
Your question is?
The question is, on the townhomes, if you sell townhomes to ABC citizens, will they be allowed to rent it out?
Yeah, we've always had a very tight rental restriction in all of our neighborhoods. 10% would be the highest number we've ever permitted for rental.
So that's what I'm saying, so no more than, you would agree to put that in your covenant, no more than 10% then?
And we don't sell to investors, we only sell to owners.
So, yeah, that's true. However, then they could sell to an investor.
Well, they could, but at my price point, we don't make a good investment. Except for the people that live in them and love them.
I would agree with that, yes.
So, but you would be able to profit that though? Okay. That is a yes?
Yes.
We're willing to proffer that, Mr. Karitko.
Okay, thank you. All right, so someone over here addressed the schools, the Welch Elementary, the all that. On that same road, farther down is the CEC, which is also an educational venue. And I've heard, I try to avoid that during certain times, but I've heard during certain times, child pickup and stuff like that, that traffic can be backed up quite a ways. Again, because that is a venue, an educational venue. Looking at the traffic studies and stuff like that, how is that addressed, ameliorated? Especially if you have this many more residences right there in that area where those parents may, want to have their children go there.
Well, this school year would be very different because of the tornado. The ninth graders at Newnan High School are all having to go to the CEC. That is not normal. So depending on how long it takes for Newnan High School to get back to where all of their students are there, any complaints and calls you're getting right now are because of the tornado and the effects that occurred there and trying to find locations for the students. But the traffic study, we've got our traffic engineer here if you want him to address any specific numbers, but I just wanted to point out for the record, because I'm not even sure that he's aware of how many students are, because the traffic study was done prior to, obviously, the tornado and those students being bused or carpooled or driving themselves. Most freshmen can't drive from Newnan High School to the CEC. So right now, that would be a difference.
There is that little bit of overlap, there's gonna be some point of overlap, until the school gets rebuilt.
Correct.
They're gonna be there, and there's gonna be a little overlap when this is starting to be built and occupied, and it's just gonna be a tremendous amount of traffic, even more than usual, who knows how long.
I mean, that's over a mile away from where we are. And I wouldn't think that any of our construction traffic would be going through the CEC to get there. I would assume it would be coming in off of the interstate directly onto our project site.
Okay.
That would just make the most sense.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking parents trying to get between and going down Poplar, and I hear a lot about Poplar and the traffic.
Well,
Even though I know most of it's in the county, our residents still travel.
But I always thought the railroad tracks were what differentiated Newnan High School and East Coweta. So the railroad tracks would be on the other side, so they wouldn't be coming from the Poplar direction you're talking about. Those students go to EC,
Yeah.
not being bused.
though,
Right,
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to address the tax abatement. I've heard a lot about that. There's a lot of ambiguity in your own statement. It kind of was unsettling when I read it said that to bring this investment to an unproven market, bonds are required, this whole thing. If this is an unproven market,
parking decks.
Just the parking decks?
Parking decks are, there's no parking decks in Newnan.
Correct. So,
That's the unproven part about it. And the density, the comprehensive plan noted this, both the county and the city noted this site, this area, to be a site of high density, high traffic, mixed-use development. So, but nothing has been built in the city or the county to have this type of project. So that's why we call it, we label it unproven.
okay, it's just kind of an ambiguous term,
Yeah.
so thank you for the clarification. Because that's kind of, I'm reading that, living here, this is home, it's an unproven market.
Yeah, and it's unproven in terms of investors as well, too. I mean,
Correct, yeah. The tax statement, I'm just trying to make heads and tails of your financial statements here. As I understand it, and once I get finished, feel free to correct me and correct, I want everybody to understand this, there seems to be a good amount of questions about the abatement. And I'm looking at page 19 of your,
already have it tabbed.
well, actually, it's page 15. How special districts work. The authority creates a special service district or SSD covering one or more parcels. As I understand, this is a total of actually 3 parcels. Within the SSD, the authority can carve out or sell a portion of future potential tax revenues. First, the authority levies a special assessment applied within the SSD district. And just to make sure that authority is the Coyote County Development Authority, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. When the
Yeah, because
authority
they are the constitutional authority.
Correct. When the authority creates a tax abatement to minimize the burden of the additional assessment on the property, then this future tax revenue is going to sold to institutional investors and the proceeds are used to pay for public infrastructure. You're asking for us to, you want to issue a bond, you have the authority, then you're going to ask us, the city, the county, and in here it said that the school district, for a 100% tax abatement for 30 years.
Not 100%, 54.7%.
Okay, that wasn't.
I understand, yeah.
So 54.7% for the full 30 years,
Yes, sir.
in order to, so that now there's no property taxes to the owners, but then you will assess a special assessment to make up the difference, basically what the equivalent of the tax would be to pay for the bond.
Let me clarify 54.7%. 54.7% is reduction in the taxes. It's not a tax abatement that amounts to 54. It's 54.7% of the taxes that would have been assessed on the property are abated.
Okay.
So there's money, revenue always coming in, 46.3%.
Based on the current valuation.
Based upon current evaluation, based upon a current model, which is a preliminary model. And when we come to the point of tax abatement and the details and the model and all that, the bond underwriter, FMS Bonds, would be glad to meet with anyone and all of you with respect to further clarification of the whole bond program. Because we understand, SSD bonds is new for this area. It's new for Georgia, really. There's been several SSD cases, not a whole lot. Most Georgia bonds are TADs, tax allocation districts, and those are a different animal. So, FMS bonds will be willing to set up a special session and go through in detail, line by line, page by page, whatever you want, just so that you have a clear and comfortable understanding of what the request is.
Okay. So, as part of the abatement, once, I'm gonna go back to the little pamphlet here that you sent to us, which I do appreciate, but almost created more questions than answers.
I'm sensing that right now. Maybe we should have stopped at page 5 and just.
Well, I'm enjoying the fold-out pages here.
Okay, good.
Once you reach,
I've pulled out mine so many times they've pulled out of the book, so
it's probably easier to do it that way, right?
it can be.
I'm looking at the third page, the third and final page of the fold-out pages. Talking about the interest rate of 6%, and I assume, I know the bond market changes by the time this will come to bond, or come to market, could very well be different.
Yeah, we start off at 3%. We've been on the project so long.
Right, yeah, and, you know, and that's why I noticed you said your tax, the page prior to that, your tax, you assumed that the millage rate would remain the same for the course of 30 years.
Right.
And then you list out your basically the amortized schedule of the interest, the debt servicing, your capitalized interest, for a total of, looks like, the total net debt service of $105,685,800. And the estimated remaining tax revenues of $122 million.
That's correct.
So that extra held, what happens to that extra $17 million?
If the project proceeds pursuant to this, the valuation proceeds according to their model, that extra money is never spent. It's refunded.
To whom?
It's refunded to the issuer of the bonds, which would be Coweta County.
The authority.
The authority, yes.
So it reduces the obligation when it's refunded.
Yes, that's correct.
So the 30 years could turn into less than 30 years.
Yes, and if we could find a better interest rate at some point in time on the bonds, you could cash out 6% and go for a lower interest rate.
So really, this is a request for up to a 30-year tax abatement bond.
The model is requesting 30 years at this, based upon these assumptions, absolutely correct. If I anticipate the next question, can you run more models at 20 and 22 and 25?
I'm not gonna put you through that, but at some point, yes.
It's not, yeah,
If this were to be approved, definitely,
Yeah.
right? Because I, just, again, going through the numbers, looking at the columns, and adding it all up, I just want to make sure, you said earlier that the school district, you were not asking for any abatement from the school district.
We haven't included the school district as part of the abatement, yes, absolutely,
Correct.
yes.
Earlier, I thought, Mr. Mayor.
They don't have to be an approval part.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So, after if this project is approved tonight, and again, I just want to clarify, we've gone around a lot. The annexation, the rezoning, and either the county, the city, or either, or both, say, no, we're not gonna do a tax abatement. How viable in reality is this project at that point?
Mr. Berry would be the only one to answer that one, because without the tax abatement, it raises his obligation for debt and equity for the project.
Sir, Mr. Berry,
Well,
if you'll state your name for the record, please.
I'm Hal Berry, Berry Companies. To answer your question, we can't quite yet. It depends on the other players we got on the team, Graystar, John Whelan, and the hotel guys. It depends on the financing markets, and there's an awful lot of exposure in this. Hey, we took this thing on to be able to bring jobs to Coweta County and Newnan. And the only way you could do it is you had to come up with a place that would attract them. And that's what we tried to do. And we had a front end loaded and get the place created with and so it's why we are where we are is the front end expense here. Can we do it completely without any bond financing? It's going to be, I can't answer that question. Can we do it for something less? I can't answer that question yet either. But well, I think I've said it. It's anything else?
No, it's a tremendous project. I mean, it's a great vision.
Thank you.
This is a great vision, it's a great dream. A lot of parts, things to fall in place. I'm just concerned that over the course of 30 years, we're sacrificing our future on this immediate desire to complete this project.
Kind of you are and you aren't, because the generation of the tax dollars, ad valorem tax dollars, are based on the densities. And the densities are way higher than anybody else is going to put on the site. So the overall tax dollars coming off are a hell of a lot higher than most people would be able to get off of it. And So part of it has to be to take care of these bonds. But the net tax dollars to the city and the county and the school district are huge. And you looked at that page 19, the numbers are huge after the amortization of the bonds. Mayor, I mentioned something to you in the last couple of days. We're looking at different options. We're looking at, are we better off to and I think we can, drop the bonds down to 25 years? And you look at the less interest that has to go out and the additional comfort to the municipalities, that may make some sense. What we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how to make things come together, so.
So, I appreciate that answer, thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed throughout here, this keeps referring to the initial bond. This is going back to our November meeting. You're going to request at least one more bond, if not.
There's 2 more office buildings, yes, sir.
So is that one more bond to facilitate the office buildings and the parking deck? phase 2
Yes,
of the project?
yes.
For a grand total of both bonds of?
88 million. It's bouncing around because I couldn't remember the number before, but that includes that isn't the payout to us, that includes all the other expenses that go into underwriting the bonds and so forth.
Correct.
So, but again, that relationship still allows the city, county, and school board to take that 45, 50% of the income off.
So would you be, so as part of the second bond issuance, it would be another 25 or 30
That's
years
right.
on top of that?
That's right.
For a total of
20 years or 25, 25 probably,
25 or 30 years?
25.
So we start the first bond, say, hypothetically speaking, this year, and it takes 5 years to get the second bond going.
Right.
That would be a total of 30 years, so we'd be into that.
Right.
So if we're talking about timing, may I?
Yes, please.
If we annex tonight and zone, what is the timing for you to come back to us with the bonding mechanism in place? for
I
approval?
think, and based on conversations that we've had with Trey Westmoreland and members of the board, that they, upon our approval, are ready to sit down with us, and they're actually trying to set a time for a presentation to go through the final detail. Every time we make a change, it takes a lot more projection work and that kind of stuff, but we're ready to finally, and we gave them our last set of projections based on what was submitted here.
Okay, so that's a 30-day period, 60-day period?
I think we will see them as quick as sometime next week, and the steps are you have to agree to an inducement letter which outlines the terms of the bonds and stuff like that, and that leads to a memorandum of understanding, and then they go out and sell the bonds. So I think that the normal process to close bonds out is 4 to 6 months. And fortunately, and John came up with this group, FMS, because of something he did in Texas with them, but they're the number one underwriter of bonds in Florida and Texas. They're huge, and they do a great job. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to, let me just jump in here 1 second. Just for the sake of clarity, where I'm a little bit disturbed is that we have to annex the property to get to another phase of a maybe on the bonds and get more clarity on the bonds. Am I hearing you? That's what I'm hearing. And if that's 6 months down the road or whatever the case may be, whatever that time frame is, let's say 2 months, then at that time, we decide, for example, and the county decides there's no abatement, that we're not in agreement with that. it's my understanding, this annexation then transfers or travels with whoever. If you decide at that particular time to abort, then we're left with an annexation of a property that cannot be completed. I'm just want to make sure I am clear on this. I'm uncomfortable with the annexation without clarity or even a definition, and then we're going to come to you later with an idea of what the bonds are really going to say and what the abatement's going to be. That's kind of like pass it and then we'll figure out what to do. Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
I understand the issue that you bring up.
Yeah, it's just,
I feel very
it's,
comfortable with all the work you've done. Okay. Well, I understand your point, but we've spent enough time with the bond underwriters to understand where they're at, that we're willing to, and my heavens, all the money that we've put out to date is all on the basis that we get this thing done and get those bonds done. So we're ready to go forward with it again.
But to clarify your point, if we do in fact annex tonight and adopt this ordinance, as everybody knows, this ordinance includes that plan. I mean,
I just want to make sure it's clear. I want to make sure it's clear to everybody as well.
Right. So if in fact they were not able to acquire the bonds and not able to close and not able to, as you said, complete the project, it wouldn't be completing it, it would be breaking ground. I mean, the land would still be there undisturbed if you weren't able to close on the property because you weren't successful with bonding. I mean, and the property owners who are there today would still own that property.
Still own that property along with the project being in place, right?
If I could complete my thought.
All right.
The property owners who are there today would still be the property owners there after their failure to close, with it annexed into the city, with this ordinance on the books, so that nobody there could do anything else except this unless they came back to us to change that plan.
Right, okay.
And at that point, the city has control over what's developed on the property, not the
Understood.
county.
Understood. Thank you.
So this plan travels with?
Yes. Because we adopt the ordinance. You've seen this before on other ordinances that not annexation, but ordinances that we have adopted using this MXD, calculation or ordinance.
I have one more question. Do we have a development agreement that we would end up doing with this developer? And is that something that we would develop with some contingencies in it and that kind of thing? Because there have been a few requests, there have been some concerns, and I believe that in the past we have, in some cases, done a development agreement. Is that something that we're entertaining in this situation to ensure some of our concerns are addressed?
It has been something that I have discussed with the city manager, Mr. Craver, and Mr. Berry, and John, and I'm assuming they've addressed it with Ms. Griffiths, that we do develop a development agreement with them, with the folks who are here tonight, that would be brought to us in between tonight and if, in fact, we do vote to annex and vote to adopt the ordinance between then and the next time that we have to come back for a second reading.
Okay.
And that would be part of that package that would be before us before that second reading.
So that it could address some of the timing issues, it could address some of the...
Sequencing.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
I've got a few more questions.
Sure.
I just want to go back to Ms. Jenkins. She had a question back at our initial meeting about the screening on the parking deck. You set up a 6 stories now? Or was it 5? 5 stories. What do you vision?
Excuse me, parking deck is 4 stories because the office buildings are 5 stories.
Okay, I think you said 4, possibly 5 to get the number of spaces in.
4.
Okay.
4.
What do do you envision as your screening, to make it less of a concrete eyesore?
At this point in time, we haven't designed the screening, but the screening can be anything from metal screening, architectural metal screening that would support plant growth on it, not kudzu, but other plant growth. Also, architectural features, sporadic placement of other type of precast elements in order to make the parking deck not be a parking deck, not look like a parking deck. But we understand the detail.
That would be another item that we could address in the development agreement that we've talked about putting together. The problem is, if you all don't approve us tonight, there was no need to spend the time to do that, but also these discussions generate additional ideas that Mr. Sears and I had not already talked about, so we would be happy to add that as well in discussions with staff and Mr. Sears, and getting a development agreement to you all for approved tonight before the second reading.
If I could ask about kind of quality of life type questions. Retail, hotel, I know you've got great dreams to have big name folks in here, which we would all love. So far, nobody's come down here that's the big name stuff, whatever it is, X, Y, or Z. If you were to get that in there, how would that affect our other businesses, specifically our downtown businesses? Because we do have some nice restaurants out here. And I know coming, from the other side of town, over in Summer Grove, east of 85, there's some people that don't even go over here. And I would like for them to go over here and enjoy the downtown area. But taking those people, but also people that do come downtown, away from downtown, to go enjoy the, what is the term, Main Street, that little Main Street corridor there, that block of Main Street area, and that kind of stuff. Along with that is the amphitheater, take away from potentially the amphitheater at the Newnan Center. And the hotel having meeting space, take away from the Newnan Center's actual conference room, convention, space there. Basically, it's a direct competition with city assets that are already struggling, in some regards. With pandemic, it happens. We can't see the next big problem that's going to happen. But I just want to make sure that those are addressed so that we're not harming the existing businesses in town.
I agree. I live in the city of Marietta. It's not to flaunt Marietta over Newnan. They had major conversations, just what you mentioned, when a food hall was proposed. 22,000 square foot, 12-tenant food hall was proposed. And its location was immediately adjacent to Marietta Square. Marietta Square is full of restaurants, just like Newnan is full of restaurants. They were concerned that this food hall and the occupiers and the users there would detract from the restaurants. The opposite was true. It's attracted more visitors to come to the area, because now, if you wanted to know where to eat, you went to the one place. So by developing this is more, it's food options, not meant to detract from downtown Newnan. You've got a great opportunity here. Great established number of restaurants. I think I've eaten at a number of them already, and we'll probably go someplace, again. But it's just another amenity added to Newnan's quality of life. That's the way we view this as. Okay. And we know we're not going to take away retail from Ashley Park. Ashley Park is, 400,000 or 500,000 square feet. We're 75,000 square feet, of which half of it, more than half of it, will be food and beverage. So we're not in competition. We're just offering a different option.
To piggyback on that, there has been some discussion from citizens who were asking about your ability to do some sort of placemaking and to involve the citizenry, partner with the city, so that we're not having this standalone facility, but that this would become part of the infrastructure of Newnan. Say, for instance, there's the ability to work with our Main Street and our downtown development and our development authorities and those kind of things to partner, so that when we get calendars together, you guys, this development would be included in that. There's opportunities there for, some of our transportation options that we have, because right now we have a trolley going between Ashley Park and the city. Is there an opportunity there for this to be added onto that and to be added to our calendar? Are you amenable to citizen input into the activities and engaging this space?
Yes, we would be amenable to that because it's all part of our desire from the beginning to create a walkable, multi-generational community. And the community has to be integrated with the broader community as well, too. One of the reasons why the link goes through there, why we want the link to go through is that part of that connection. One reason why the amphitheater is added, again, connection to the community. So yes, comparison of calendars, absolutely. We're certainly not going to have the Eagles show up, Paul. At the same time, you got something else going on here.
I'll go to Wrigley Field.
Maybe we can get Joe Walsh instead.
There you go.
Okay. But still, yes, Councilman Jenkins, absolutely, connect this project with the community. 'Cause that's the success of our project. It's got to be part of the community. Otherwise, it's just another 9-to-5 development.
Okay, any other questions?
Another question regarding, this goes back to traffic, going back to the traffic studies.
Right, get it.
And whoever could address that. I thought I read in there somewhere that said that currently, there's build and no build, all sorts of terminology, but currently it's at a LOSD, which is level of service D, which, if I found it correctly, level of service D based on the Highway Capacity Manual Special Report 209, 1985, Transportation Research Board. And this is their description of what it currently is. High density but stable flow, speed and freedom to maneuver are severely restricted. Poor level of comfort, small increases of traffic flow cause operational problems. And I know they gave some remediation, but that's all it is. It just helps alleviate some of that. And I'm just concerned, especially when you have, senior community here, you have that many more people, walking people, trying to use the link. You have already other traffic congestion, school traffic in the mornings and afternoons, business traffic. That's a serious concern that I have. How do you see that playing out with these remediations that Three Rivers and Greta have given? And are they really going to do anything?
Sure. For the record, Brian West with Kimley Horn and Associates, we did prepare the traffic study. So the operation of level of service D that you're referring to, that's either an AM or PM peak hour. So that's not the operation of that road all the time. That's during the peak AM peak hour, PM peak hour. Do the remediations help? Absolutely. The no-build option, there's no remediation. So it's going to continue to operate at that same level of service with no remediation. For example, the left turn lane that is needed on Newnan Crossing Boulevard into the Chick-fil-A. In the no-build scenario, that's going to continue to operate just like it does today, and it's going to continue to get worse as the population increases. So no remediation there means population is still going to increase, homes are still going to build out, people are still going to turn on the road, still try to make that left into Chick-fil-A, and it's going to back up. So the remediation is meant to not only remediate our side, but try to improve something that's already operating at a lower level of service than we'd like it to operate. So a lot of these improvements that we want to see or that we want to make too are operational ingress, egress to help improve the flow of traffic. If you have a terrible flow of traffic into and out of a development, the development's not going to be successful. It's not going to survive. So we have a vested interest in making sure that we improve traffic flow out there, for sure. And go ahead.
So will these improvements increase the level of service to a level C? Is that even possible?
I'll have to go back and look at what was in the report. There was
It's in the engineering report, so I'm trying to muddle through this thing.
Sure, sure. I know it's a lengthy report there.
And I don't need to belabor the point. I'm just really concerned about the traffic out there, because it's pretty bad if you ever try to get out there during, AM or PM peak hours. And it's going to impact the hospital, which is right there. So if you have need for emergency, and in one of the things that stated, there's a very potential possible increase in vehicular accidents and stuff like that, which I totally get. And right now, I believe that area would fall under Station 2, which is over on Lower Fayetteville. So now you're taking service away from that end of town, all the way over to there to facilitate, vehicular accidents as well as, service calls from the retail, hotel, and all the residential stuff there, whether it be rental or owned. And that's a big concern because, and it kind of tying in to someone else is at a 54.7% abatement request level, with a reduced tax revenue from that, we're now strapped on our emergency services, police and fire, to provide services at an adequate level to that area, because we already have a lot of calls. I mean, I think it's pretty evident, and we're looking at the numbers, and looking at the potential need for more police officers and all the accoutrements, more firefighters and all the accoutrements, as well as potentially a station over here on the Surface Justice Project. And with 5 and 5-story buildings and, high buildings, it would probably necessitate another ladder truck, tanker, a medical rescue. I'm just,
So, Mr. Greco, do you have another question?
Well, anyways, so my question is, how does that affect traffic? And then a follow-on question is, with the abatement that you're requesting, how is the city going to basically, pay for all that other stuff that we very well might need?
I guess a couple of things. So in the 2025 no build, no improvement scenario, it's operating at a level of service D in the AM peak. 2025 no build with planned improvements out there. That's the improvements where they're either in the planning stages or awaiting funding or have funding just waiting to be built. It would improve it to a level of service C. And then with our project and those same planned improvements, it would still operate at a level C. So we're not bringing it from a level C down to a D or providing a detriment, to what would be out there. Now, I know we keep talking about the abatement and the revenues, but there's also impact fees that get paid at the beginning to offset a lot of those costs that you're talking about. And so I haven't heard anything regarding the impact fees.
And with respect to the abatement, it's not like you're receiving zero, average $2.6 million a year.
What are the estimated impact fees on this project?
That's correct, which are $3.9 million.
Right. Thank you.
So,
Okay.
with that, the valuation of property is going to change. As soon as you break ground, you change the valuation of property. How do you determine the value in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years when that second bond, is due? You're coming up with these numbers in that booklet. Kind of what's your methodology?
Coweta County uses the income approach for property valuation, and the property valuation then determines the taxes. So based upon the income that would be generated by the 2 other office buildings, that's the value. You take the income, you assign a cap rate to it. What is office buildings? What's the cap rate for office buildings now? 6%, 7%, and that sets your valuation. Then from the valuation, it derives, based upon your tax rate, it derives how many taxes, and then the bonds are related to how much taxes can be generated. So it's all based upon the income approach to value that Coweta County uses.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is a current methodology used by almost every municipality. It's always income approach.
Okay. And then I think this is my last question. On page 17 of the handout you gave us, it's talking about the Poplar Place infrastructure bonds. The first bond, and I just want to make sure, because this doesn't, the only thing addressed in this was the initial bond, nothing about the second bond at all.
That is correct, yes.
And I'm looking at the bullet points down below, there was 4 of them. The first one, the bond proceeds will create 13.91 acres of public infrastructure, including link trails, amenity ponds, clubhouse, parking, traffic improvements, including internal roundabouts. The second one, additionally, a portion of the bonds will be used to create 10 acres of a construction-ready pad site for corporate office buildings. So the first bond is going to actually create the pad sites for all 3 office buildings?
Mass grading and utility stub to the perimeter.
I'm sorry, say
Mass grading and utility stub to the edge.
okay.
So it's not a pad-ready site. It's, like I said, mass grading, rough grading, and utilities stub to the perimeter. Of course, if there's a street in front of it, streets are there, sidewalks there, and the curb is there.
So that's for those two, but it is
Yeah.
the actual pad for the first office, because that's in for phase one.
That's correct, yeah.
All right, great, all right. All right, and then the fourth bullet, application for additional bonds for the project, says the scope is not validated or determined at this time. And that's your caveat for that second bond?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah,
Okay.
We hope that the project is so successful that a major corporate user will say, I gotta be here in Poplar Place. And if that corporate user is willing to do everything, well, we ask for nothing for the bonds. Like I said, excuse me. It's just a matter of, did Halcyon plan their third office building yet? Yeah, they have planned it now because the first two are filled. Has Avalon planned their second office building? Well, they planned the second one and the fourth one now. These projects have a tendency to build their own momentum. And, then the momentum generates the use and the scope. So on the other hand, if the office use wants to be 600,000 square feet for the next phase, well, we're coming back to you guys and ask for an increase in density.
Yeah, and I saw that you do want the potential to ask for further changes.
Absolutely. I mean, it's to the benefit of everybody if the project becomes that successful if you have a warranted user, ready to come, ready to go, and ready to build here in Coweta County, absolutely.
Okay, there's no firm commitments from anybody?
No.
And I just want to make sure, I've tried to do some research, trying to find, are there any other projects like this at all on the south side of the land, or all up north, right?
They're all up north. You saw the arc that Greystar has. All their developments are north. It's about time something was brought down here.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? Anyone? Are you okay? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time, and the first item of business would be to ask for a motion to accept the report and recommendation from the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the report and recommendation from the Planning Commission. Any discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next would be a motion on the issue.
I make a motion that we approve the annexation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We approve the annexation. Any further discussion?
May I make
Yes.
I'd like to make a statement, if that's okay. All right?
Sure.
I think with regards to this specific project, I think, I've got a lot of respect for Hal and his team. They've done a great job in a presentation. You can see some of the value and the benefits to it. Living on that side of town, I've spent a lot of time just going and trying to visualize that specific project in that location, along with driving Poplar Road, along with driving Newnan Crossing Boulevard, Newnan Crossing Bypass, down to all the way to Highway 16. There is so much property there that has to be developed, and one would have to think that if this being approved and annexed, my concern is what would follow and the open door that this would create among many different concerns, quite frankly, with traffic. But, none of us we haven't really talked about the additional police and their concern about the calls, as well as the fire chief stating that, accidents, and to think that we're not going to be impacted negatively in some way is, I think, a little short-sighted, quite frankly. Also, with regards to traffic, I get the traffic studies and all to mitigate, but to mitigate it's a fancy word for there's an issue and you're just going to try and mitigate some of the problem. And then you move into, just bring perspective here. At peak hours, it's 1,200 trips. I just want to give you a visual for a moment. The average car being 14 feet long, if you were to multiply 1,290 times that, you're looking at a distance of about 3.6 miles, okay? If you take the total 14,000 trips per day and to line them up on average car, you're looking at 41 miles in distance, almost to downtown Atlanta. So to say it's not going to be impacted, I'm, and that it's going to flow and everything's going to work well, may or may not be, but I'm just wanting you to get that in your mind for a moment, that type of traffic being generated in that corner. So that's really all I have to say.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir, thank you. My big concerns on this, and I appreciate the changes that Barry and Associates have made, but my concerns were the tax abatements. It's still there, the 30 years. The amount of money that we're going to lose. I know they said 2.6 million, but we have the potential of bringing in 5.2 million, doubling. That's money that I feel we can use as a city. 505 apartments. I just don't feel we need any more apartments. We have probably a little less than 1,000 already on the books to break ground. We're adding another 505. That's close to 1,500. In all my dealings, a good mix of apartments to single family is probably 75%, 25%. I don't see us building single family homes. I think right now we're probably at about 63% single family in this town right now, with the rest being apartments. But people move here because of the quality of life, and I think with adding more and more and more apartments, and also giving a tax abatement for 30 years. One, we're setting a precedent with the tax abatements that I don't care for. We gave cancer treatment centers 10-year, and they brought a lot to the table. Cancer treatment just got sold. They're now, have already told us that they're going to a nonprofit. We're going to lose tax revenue from them. We're going to lose tax revenue from this. There's no guarantees on a phase two. There's no guarantees of jobs coming in. A lot of companies are now going to work from home. I just talked to Southwire out of Carrollton. They've already told 35% of their employees, stay at home and work at home. So I question whether we're going to fill up or even get to phase two on that. So, thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to
Mr.
approve.
Mayor, might have asked for some clarification. Mr. Koritko raised an issue about the rental units in the townhouses, and it was proffered that no more than 10%. That's not a condition that is in the current ordinance. Is it council's desire to add that? And the second piece was there's been discussion of a development agreement to cover certain aspects of the phasing of the development. Is that to be a condition too, that we come up with a development agreement before the next meeting? If it is, we need to add those two conditions.
I'll add those to the motion.
All right. Mr. Sears, it was my understanding there was a motion to annex and then a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Correct, but the annexation has those same conditions.
All right, fine, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a suggestion on this vote, that you have a, rather than a yea or nay, show of hands? Yeah, thanks.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, any other questions, discussions, Mr. Sears? We appreciate that. I'm going to call the question. All
Hey,
those
just,
in favor?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rhodes, he made the motion with the amendment. I didn't hear a clear second with the amendments.
I accept that.
All right, thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Will you put this on our agenda for a second and final reading? Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda this evening, I'm sorry, I need a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
I make a motion
I'm sorry, with the condition.
with the additions Mr. Sears mentioned.
A motion or a second?
Motion to that.
Okay, all right. I'm not going to call for discussion on this. I think we've discussed it enough. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is a public hearing for 202 Greenville Street. Mr. Murray, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The property that we're,
If you'll leave quietly, we have more business to discuss, and the hour's gotten late. Thank you.
yes, sir, I'll try to go quickly. The property is a commercial property on Greenville Street. It's actually two separate buildings. The one on the right is on the picture there is an old warehouse, and the property on the left, or the structure on the left, is a old service garage. That is the structure we're addressing tonight. That particular structure is dilapidated. It has a collapsed roof, and the building department is asking for a resolution to repair or demolish. The structure is valued by the county at $2,773. The cost to repair that would be significantly more than 50% of value. And we do have the property is under new ownership recently, and one of the new owners is here tonight. He has some plans for the property and wanted to address the council, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murray.
I have one question, Mayor.
Yes.
Did you say the property is valued at $2,700?
$2,773 based on the the Coweta County tax
Will the
assessor's
new owner
office.
of this property please come forward? Thank you. State your name for the record, please. First question I have for you before you begin, I'm glad you're here this evening. I'm sorry, your name is?
Buyar Emini.
Nice to meet you. Glad you're here. Is there an ongoing business being conducted in this location?
Not
Is
at
it
this
closed?
moment.
Okay.
It is closed,
All
yes.
right, thank you. When did you buy the property?
About 6 months ago.
All right. Why have you not done anything to the property in the last 6 months?
I've been trying to get permission to remove the building so we can have more parking space there and remodel the next building to it.
Okay. If you'll make your statement, please.
Yes, we would like to demolish the building so we can create more parking space and have a driveway to the back of the building. So that's the reason. And the building at this point is in very bad shape. It's really, the roof has collapsed, and there is no value to it. So that's the reason we're just trying to demolish it.
Okay. Is this building over 50 years old? Does it need to go through that process?
1965, according to the tax record. So, yeah.
That's why we're here. Okay. Have we gone through the process of that?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Is there a motion here?
So
Wait a
moved.
minute, well, I'm sorry. We're still in a public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the issue of 202 Greenville Street? Repair, demolish? All right, thank you for being here. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion on the demolition.
I make a motion that we allow them to demolish the building.
Second.
Motion and second, we allow for demolition. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion carried. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there anything else?
No, sir.
You sure? Because we could order breakfast here in a minute. This next item is the second and final reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 3 alcoholic beverages for the Code of Ordinances of the City of Newnan and to amend residency requirements for licensing. This is a second and final reading. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved to accept it.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. We adopt on second and final reading. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
my point from last time, when we changed the residency requirements, we're removing the accountability and the responsibility aspect of this, and we don't have as much recourse in the need, you know.
We do, we can pull their license. If they have a problem, you pull their license.
I think Mr. Kritko's point is that we don't have a contact person.
Correct.
But.
We have a licensee.
Licensee.
Correct. We're removing that residency requirement. May state that we don't have a license holder that lives in Coweta County.
But we still have a licensee.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes.
Point of contact in case there's a problem.
Yeah, there is a name on that license.
Okay, good.
Does he have to live in Coweta County, or can he live up in Alaska?
According to the ordinance that's in front of you that this body contemplated at the last meeting, she or he needs to be a U.S. resident, U.S. citizen, or a legal alien in the United States.
It's my understanding if it was a violation and we can't find anybody, we still go out there and lock the door because we pull their license.
That's one of the choices.
Okay.
Not exactly. If there's a violation, we have a process we
But
go
no, we have a
through
process, but
to
we still-
notify them.
But we
of the
still.
problem.
Then we lock the door.
We still could shut their that part of their business down if we can't ever get anybody on the phone.
Well, what's the problem?
Realistically, there's a manager gonna be
That's
on
exactly
site
right,
of every one of
always.
these businesses. Always on site. There's gonna be somebody in charge when you walk in the door, and that person can be served. Is that correct, Mr. Sears?
Pardon?
That person can be served who's in charge of the business when you walk in the door?
He's not the licensee.
Okay.
So the person who's in charge is the licensee, as far as the license is concerned. Now, it's just like any server, the manager would be responsible for what his servers did.
Right.
So, but if you take action, so just like the server, I mean, we have never, other than one or two instances where it was actually the licensee who committed the offense, we've never arrested a licensee. It's always somebody working for the licensee. This was put in place simply for, what the thing was to make sure there was somebody's name on the application, all right, either the licensee or the licensed rep who lived in Coyote County. Now, like we've said before, many ordinances include that, many ordinances do not include that as a requirement. But just in 2000, when we adopted the license rep statute, we've had it in place. We did not have it in place prior to that.
Nice.
So the process is if you have to serve that person, they live in Hawaii, you have, what do you, send a certified?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yeah. And hand deliver one to the location.
Okay. Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance change on the second and final reading. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, opposed? Motion carried on second and final reading. All right, under visitors' petitions, we have nothing on our agenda this evening. Mr. Sears, do we have any need for an executive session this evening?
No, sir.
Good, that was the right answer. Praise Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Anyone else who showed up this evening that's not on the agenda, if you'll come forward and state your name for the record, please.
I know it's late and I will be brief. This is Frankie Little Harden, 21 Pine Lake Drive. I attended the county work session this afternoon before I got a cup of coffee and then moseyed on over here. I was also at the public hearing where you initially discussed this project last month. And I think the single most distressing thing I heard in that entire public hearing was one of you, I believe it was you, sir, but I wouldn't swear to it, said, well, the county, we just don't talk to them. If your ears were burning this afternoon, well, they should have been, because I heard what the county said about you. Quality of life is a nebulous quality. I know we could all have our definitions of it. For me, it includes trees. We're going to have to figure out what that is. And you guys, if we're going to keep our quality of life here, you're going to have to figure out how to talk to each other. Unless this city intends to annex the entirety of Coweta County, we are intertwined. And you have got to figure this out. And you have got to start talking to each other and working with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you being here. If there's no one else this evening, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.